If you're within reach of a Bible, would you go ahead and find a Bible and turn to the book of Psalms? This is a little bit of a sad Sunday, not just because I'm preaching again, but also because this is Amy's last Sunday with us. So try as we might, we can't talk her into staying just yet, but nonetheless. So if you haven't had a chance to be able to get acquainted or visit any with Amy, so she'll be here. She said she takes cash donations. And I'm joking, but it's been an absolute delight, Amy, to have you with us. And she did pretty good on the congas there, didn't she, huh? You bet. So she was all over those. So that's that. Psalm 25. If you want to turn and put a finger there while you're finding that, I'm going to talk. I like to think that there's a lot of different good books that sit on the shelves in my office. But I also know that there are a handful of books that are kind of defining books. Readers, some folks are readers, some folks aren't. But, there are some books that I've come across that I realize they really shaped me. They shaped me pretty deeply. Anyone hear that? So I'm not the only one hearing it, right? Okay. Is it an airplane? Okay. I'm happy whenever people would ask, I'm happy to recommend books that I've found to be very important and very formative for me. But this week there's one book that's been kind of riding around with me, and it's a book by Scott Peck. It's called The Different Drum. Not just because I'm a drummer, but The Different Drum, and what that book is about, what Peck writes about, is deepening community and peacemaking. That may not sound very inviting to you, but let me go ahead and unpack a little bit of what he talks about, because it is profound, and for me it was revolutionary. Peck makes the basic argument that intimacy or deep community with another person is something that we both desire and resist. We want it, but we also are afraid of it. He talks about the idea that because we're afraid of it, we tend to live lives in our relational life, what he calls pseudo-relationships. And pseudo-relationships are where we kind of know about one another, but there's places we won't go with each other. You know what I'm talking about? Because, you know why we don't want to go there? Because it's easier to just keep the peace. And so what happens is we have relationships that are really kind of hemmed in, and they're a little bit artificial, because there's places that we won't go because we're afraid to go there, and therefore we resolve and we kind of resign and retreat into pseudo-relationships. But the problem with that is, even while we're in these pseudo-relationships, we still have the desire for something deep. We still have a desire for deep community. We still have a desire for intimacy, but we don't go there. Anyone connect with that? We all do. Because life is this network of relationships. Some are obviously deeper and closer to us than others, but the truth is sometimes the pseudo-relationships exist in a family. The pseudo-relationships sometimes exist in a marriage, where what we're really about is keeping the peace, not depth of connection. Does it make you want to read the book? Peck talks about the wonder of intimacy. He also talks about the moving parts, if you will, of it. But what happens is, between where we live in pseudo-relationship and the intimacy that we really want, the reason we don't go there and that we don't get there is because in between the pseudo-relationships that I live in and the intimacy that I want is this very uncertain and scary and turbulent place that you have to go through to get to intimacy. You following me? That's the place that Peck calls chaos. Chaos is where things are coming apart and we don't know what's going on and we don't know what to expect and we don't know how it's going to turn out. So we kind of dip our toe into that pool occasionally and it gets bad. And so what do? We resort and we retreat back to pseudo-relationship, because now we're about keeping the peace. Even if it's a fragile peace, we keep that peace. But there's still a hole in us that wants the intimacy. Now, this place called chaos, this turbulent, uncertain, frightful place, it's where the truth is told. It's where the truth is heard. Now, do you see why we retreat from it? I can only take the truth in small doses about me. I read in a different source, they raised the question, they said, have you ever asked somebody else, what's life like on the other side of me? I've been thinking about that for a long time. What's life like on the other side of Barney? But I've been too scared to ask people. So we live in pseudo relationship, but what we really want is intimacy. Now, I am getting to where I'm going, okay? I just want to lay this stuff out here. And I would challenge you with this. Just think through, in one of those moments of honesty with yourself, how many pseudo relationships do you really maintain? Maybe I could ask it the other way. How many really intimate, deep community relationships do you have? My guess is the reason we don't, even though we desire it, is because we're afraid to go through the chaos. So we retreat. The idea of intimacy is not just the theme of Peck's book. It's also the theme of Psalm 25. If I were to take my one-word label and put it on this psalm, that one word would be intimacy. To know deeply and to be known deeply is both the thing that we long for and it's also what we're scared of, right? We want to be known deeply, we want to be deeply understood, but we're afraid because we might get hurt, right? But Psalm 25 is talking about intimacy. It's not really talking so much about intimacy as far as between, human beings. It's not about intimacy with me and God. What we find is really a lot of the principles are the same because relationships are relationships, whether it's with one another or with God. But Psalm 25 talks a lot about intimacy. And it gives us kind of, if you will, a little bit of the flavor and some moving parts, some of the elements of intimacy with God. And what I mean by intimacy with God is to know and to be known deeply. One other theory I have, and then we'll jump in, okay? I believe a lot of people long for intimacy with God. And I believe they're scared to death of it because they're not sure what that will do to them. And they're not sure what they'll find when they go there. But when it is in our heart and we long for our relationship and our life with God to maybe get to another level, I would point you to Psalm 25. I'm going to read some verses and then we're just going to lift out some things in terms of intimacy with God. Okay? We're going to start right from the edge. Psalm 25, verse 1. To you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. O my God, in thee I trust. So don't let me be ashamed. Don't let my enemies exult over me. None of those who wait for you will be ashamed. But those who deal treacherously without cause, they will be ashamed. Make me know your ways, O Lord. Teach me your paths. Lead me in your truth. Teach me. For you are the God of my salvation, and for you I wait all the day. Remember, this is verse 6, remember, O Lord, your compassion and your mercy, for they have been from all along. Do not remember the sins of my youth or my failings, my transgressions, but according to your mercy, remember me, for your goodness' sake. Good and upright is the Lord, so he instructs sinners in the way. He leads the afflicted to justice, and he teaches the afflicted his way. All the paths of the Lord are mercy and truth to those who keep his covenant and his testimonies. Here we go again. For your name's sake, O Lord, pardon my sin, for it is great. Who is the man who fears the Lord? He will instruct him in the way he should choose. His soul will abide in the good, and his descendants will inherit the earth. The secret of the Lord is for those who fear him. He will make them know his covenant. Let's pray. Father, I ask that you would speak to us from your word and that we would be shaped by that. Amen. Intimacy and intimacy with God. What are some of the elements? What are some of the, if you want to put it this way, the moving parts in that? If we want to see our life and our sense of connection to God go to a different level, what are some of the pieces in that? Let me highlight them. There's 4 of them that I see, okay? You may see more, and that's fine. Feel free to help me, and show me. But I'm going to lift out what I see. Here's the first one. It is verse 1. To you, O Lord, do I lift up my soul. The soul is the me that's really me. Not the me I always put forward to the world. The me that's really me. You know what I'm talking about? We kind of have the pseudo us that kind of is out there dealing with people and stuff. But then there's the me that's really me that doesn't always come out very much. You with me? Or are you just thinking, Barney's kind of neurotic? When the scriptures speak of the soul, it's talking about, like I said with the 23rd Psalm, it's the breathing place, that place deep within us that our life kind of comes out of that. It says, God, to you I lift up my soul. This is worship language here. Not in the sense of particular rituals that we go through. This is worship talk in this way. In making a reach to God. To you I lift up the deep part of me. I believe that this whole thing is about making myself known to God. Now you might say, well, God kind of knows everything, so surely he knows me. I don't think so. He knows all about you, but His goal is to know you in relationship. And the only way that's going to happen is if we make ourselves known to Him. So when I lift up my soul, whether it be in personal worship or gathering for worship, what I'm doing is I'm really kind of opening this up. I'm making a reach to God to say, I want to let a little bit of you in deep. And I want to let what's in me deep out to you. Does that make sense? We miss so much if what we do in worship is we simply say, hey, this was a nice song. Hey, this was a moving prayer. Hey, I really like the feel that I have from this. We miss what worship is about. Worship isn't just running through those routines. Worship is where I have the opportunity to lift my soul to God, to say, I want to let a little bit of you into me, and I want to let a little bit of me out to you. That's a very different idea about worship. If we want to be intimate with God, there is this whole element of making ourselves known to God. To you, O Lord, do I lift up my soul? You know what that is? It's kind of, this whole idea of to lift the soul to God in worship is kind of to undo Genesis 3. Anyone familiar with Genesis 3? Let me give you a running start on it. God creates everything there is, right? Genesis 1. God creates the man, Genesis 2, puts him in the garden, breathes the breath of life into him. Then he says, not good for him to be alone. Creates the woman, puts them together. You with me so far? It says that they were with each other, naked and unashamed before the presence of God. That's Genesis 2, and that's paradise. Genesis chapter 3, everything goes south, remember? What happens? The serpent comes. And he said, temptation comes. Then what happens? They fail badly, right? Kind of messing it up for all mankind would probably be messing it up badly, okay? They fail badly. Try to be their own God. That's the whole point of it. Try to be their own God. And then, who shows up? They hear the nearness of God. And what do? Come on. What do? They hide and they cover up. Fig leaves. They hide and cover up from God. So the one that they most need to open up to, they hide from. Right? The one they most need to run to, they cover up from. When I say, God, to you, I lift my soul, I'm undoing that. I'm not running and hiding from God anymore. I'm not covering up from Him anymore. There are people who go to great lengths to cover their lives up from God. They are scared to death of God. He's the most threatening person in their life, and so they want to hide, they want to run, they retreat. It's to the bushes, and they cover up. And it's not just with God, by the way. They do it with everybody else. Pseudo relationship. If I want intimacy with God, I need to lift my soul to Him. I need to undo the Genesis 3 pattern of hiding in the bushes and covering up. And I need to say, God, here's a little bit of the real me. And I'm going to offer it up to you. I'm going to make myself known. That's a key. That's a fundamental in intimacy with God. If you want to take your life with God to a little bit deeper level, quit hiding. Quit covering up. Dare to take the risk to say to you, I'm going to open up the deep place in me. You with me? I've got 7 minutes and I've got 3 more points to make. Hold on, it's going to get busy. Here's the second one. To lifting the soul up to God and making ourselves known, there's another part to that, and here it is. The longing to know Him. Make ourselves known and long to know Him. You see, it's about in verse maybe 3 or 4. Let me see, I keep putting this down. Verse 4, he gives us 3 different things. He says, make me know your ways. Teach me your paths. Lead me in your truth. We hear that and we don't even think about it. I want us to think about it. The ways. Lead me in your ways, which means what? Get this. I want to know how you are. I long to know, God, how you are. My brother tells the story. Early when he was as far as married to Connie, they had a family gathering with Connie's side of the family. I don't know if it was Thanksgiving or Christmas, but one of those kind of the big dinner kind of things. But it's at Connie's family with their house, and it's a spread, and it's great. And then they bring out the fresh baked bread. And they're all sitting there, they say the prayer, and then Connie's father, Steve's father-in-law, reaches for the bread, takes a slice, wads it up, and begins to eat it like a softball. And Steve's like, this is odd. And Connie tells Steve, she leans over, she says, it's just my dad's way. That's how he does bake bread. It's unique to him. It's kind of how he does things. When it says, make me know your ways, I want to know how you do things, God. How do you do things? When we ask and long to know that, we learn. We start to know him. Teach me your paths. Paths take you somewhere, correct? Paths take you somewhere. I want to know, God, where you go. I want to know, God, the track you run on. I want to know where your steps take you. I want to know. I don't simply want to know stuff about you. I want to know you. There's an amazing scene in the film Good Will Hunting. And I don't know if you know the story or not, but there's this troubled but brilliant guy. He's based on me. No. There's this troubled but brilliant guy, and they realize he has enormous potential, but he's got stuff that he has to work through, so they pair him up with a counselor. Anyone know this story? Anyone see this? Okay. So they pair him up with this counselor, Robin Williams, and then they start talking, working through. And there's this one scene where he says, Will, I want to know the you that I can't learn from a book. He's trying to break through pseudo-relationship, and what he's telling him is I long to know you, not just information about you. I want to know how you are. I want to know where you go. The last part is really interesting. David says, lead me in your truth. But truth, sometimes we take that the wrong way. The word he uses here for truth doesn't mean aligns with reality. Who was it that posted that one deal where it says, you know it's cold outside when you go outside and it's cold? That's the truth, right? It aligns with reality. But there's another way that we use true, correct? There's another way that we use it, and that is, will she stay true to her principles? Will he remain true to his friends? At that point, truth means loyalty. That's the word that's used here. God, I want to know what you're committed to. I want to know how you do things. I want to know where you go, where you won't go. I want to know what you're committed to. If we want to take our life with God to another level, there has to be that longing to know him, not merely know about him. I want to know how you are. I want to know your way. I want to know where you go. I want to know what you're committed to. Okay, so that's two pieces. And those kind of couple together, correct? They kind of couple together. I'm going to make myself known to God, and I'm going to seek to know him. Therefore, we have the back and forth of what intimacy is. Now, there's two other things that we really need to bring out. One is we need to deal in the currency of relationship. Scroll on down. He starts to make a prayer, and he says, God, I want you to remember me. Remember your compassion and your mercy. Chesed is the word. It's hard to pronounce. You have to pretend like there's a popcorn kernel stuck there. Chesed. Okay? Your compassion and your chesed, which means mercy. Remember that. I'm running out of time. Okay, look. Here's what we have to know about the idea of remember. When you ask God to remember something, in the scriptures, when God remembers something, it springs into life. I want you to remember your compassion and your mercy. Meaning, I want that to be a dynamic thing that springs into life. Why? Because if we're going to live at all, we have to live in his compassion and his mercy. Correct? No one should ever be asking God to be giving us what we deserve. No one should ever say, God, give me what we deserve. Because what we deserve is hell. This isn't about what we deserve. And he doesn't say, God, remember your justice. Because we all know what we deserve. He's saying, remember your compassion and your mercy. Because I need those. And if I don't have those, I really can't be in a relationship with you. Because I am not perfect. So I have to live in your mercy because I do mess up. Anyone else fall in line behind me on that? Now listen, in any relationship, really, in any relationship, we live in the mercy of those that matter most to us. Right? I live in the mercy of Jennifer. I don't get what I deserve, and I'm really glad. I live in her mercy, and she in mine. I live in the mercy of my 3 sons. I don't know how many cheeseburgers I owe them. I live in their mercy. Because if I don't get their mercy and compassion, we don't have a relationship because I mess up. This is the currency of a relationship. And he says, God, remember your compassion and mercy because that's how this relationship has to work. It can't work any other way because I'm not perfect. You with me? But then he says, don't remember. Please do not remember how I failed. Now look, what God remembers springs to life. What God forgets in relational terms ceases to be. You see what he's saying now? Don't remember my sin. Don't remember my failings. He's not saying, God, just kind of brush it under the rug. He's not saying, God, just please ignore it. He's saying, God, I want you to deliberately forget it so that this is not a barrier between me and you anymore. That the things that I've done, failed to do, the ways that I've messed up, I do not want those to be a barrier in my relationship with you. So the only way they cannot be a barrier is if you forget them. Because when you forget them, they cease to be. They're removed. Cognitively, we're told whatever we experience, we remember. Or it's logged into memory somewhere. We get that. But that doesn't have to be the case relationally, right? Right? I'm telling Mel this week about a story I read. This lady, she was in this social gathering and someone took him aside and said, I can't believe you're talking to that person after they had done this, this, and this to you. And she says to them, and this is classic, she says, I distinctly remember forgetting those things. This is what he's praying. God, I want you to distinctly remember forgetting those things. That's the currency and the language of relationship. We live in the other's mercy, but we're also counting that they will not empower those failures so that they stand as a barrier in our relationship. Wow. Here's the last point. We'll land the plane from here. In verse 14 is one of the most compelling verses that I've ever come upon in the Scriptures. The secret of God is with those who fear him. Now, just before that, he's been talking about that God will instruct. He'll coach us. Those of us that have failed, he'll coach us. You know why? Because he knows our secrets. He knows our secret failures. And it says that the afflicted, he will lead to where things are right again. You know why? Because he knows that secret about us. He knows those things that we struggle with. He knows those things that are a source of pain for us. He knows those things. And because he knows our secrets, he can heal us and he can help us. And then it says the other way. Secret of the Lord. It could be translated as the intimacy of the Lord is with those who fear him. When you know some of my secret things, you understand some things about me at a level you didn't understand before. Because secrets aren't just about information, they're about insight. And so when you know some of those secrets about me, you say, I think I know now why he does what he does. I think I know now why he won't do certain things. I think I know now why he won't go certain places. I know why now he thinks it's real important to do these things. Before I just saw it on the surface. Now I know the secret. So now it makes sense. You with me? When we know the secrets of folks, we understand them at a different level. This is what verse 14 is saying. The secret of the Lord is with those who take him seriously. God has secrets. Did you know that? He has a secret longing. Check it out. 2 Peter 3:9. He has a secret longing. He not only has a secret longing, we know that God has secret pain. Did you know that? He has deep and great pain. Did you know that? Check out Hosea 11 sometime, and you'll find out what the pain of God is. He will share his secrets to those who take him seriously and who treasure him. And when you know my secrets and I know yours, we've entered into intimacy. And that's Psalm 25. It's not just a picture in Psalm 25. It's the invitation. This is accessible to me. It's accessible to you. That we can know God deeply and be known by God deeply. If I lift my soul to him, and if I make it my purpose to know his ways and paths and what he's committed to, if I will traffic in the currency of relationship about to remember and not remember, and if I share my secrets and want to learn his, what we have then is something intimate. And we've moved from a pseudo relationship with God where we go through the motions while keeping him at bay. We can move into a deep relationship with God where we know him and he knows us.